Hello everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Road to Rotation. Here we have a kind of interesting video today because the original leader for this one was actually banned. So instead of going over the original leader as written, I'll just be going over the cards for the new promo version that replaced her. So this is the original one wording. Everything is the same on the promo leader, except it has the additional stipulation that all of your cards in your deck have to be from the East Blue card type. So just going through the rest of the ability, it is a 5,000 power leader with 5 life, mono blue, and when your deck is reduced to 0, you win the game instead of losing according to the rules. And then Dawn times 1, when this leader's attack deals damage to your opponent's life, you may trash 1 card from the top of your deck. So as you might expect, this deck is a different win condition from traditional decks, where a lot of times your objective in the game will be getting your own deck to 0 so that you can win from that. Interesting things for those who haven't played against this leader before. The way One Piece works is as soon as your deck hits 0 cards, like even in the middle of a swing, even in the middle of whatever else, you win the game on the spot. That means that you can win during the middle of an attack that you cannot fully counter out of, as long as you are going to 0 cards during the middle of it, which is pretty darn strong. So the deck, now that it's been really restricted to East Blue, is quite an interesting one, and it's quite fragile right now. But I do think that there is room for support. They've already shown that they're willing to give this deck some more support. So don't sleep on this one, and make sure that you every once in a while find some time to check up on what the Nami deck is running at the moment, so that you don't get got by a deck that you really don't expect. First cards that I want to go over with this one are the 2K counters. There's 3 different 2K counters right now that are in the East Blue type, and I'm going to be including OP03, even though it is a little bit, it's still a little ways off here in the global meta. But the first 2 we have are staples of the deck. We have first the 1-cost Kaya 2K. Simple on play of draw 2 cards, trash 2 cards. This is always moving you towards your goal of getting to 0 cards. So great card to be able to play out. And it only costs 1 Dawn, so it's really efficient at doing what it does. Definitely going to be a staple in the deck no matter how you play it. Next, we have the 1-cost Apis. She's also 2K. With on play, you may trash 2 cards from your hand, look at the top 5 from your deck, and reveal up to 1 East Blue type card and add it to your hand. Then place the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. This one feels like a really bad searcher, but for the number of cards that you can generally get in this deck, this is not as bad as it seems. And because literally your entire deck is East Blue, this is really a pick your favorite card from the top 5, which can be really important for finding the Kayas. It also puts the rest on the bottom in any order. So really good Nami players will be able to remember what they put on the bottom with their searchers, so that they can plan out the end game when they have Kayas at the end game, maybe to Kaya into the cards that they know are on the bottom and chain together the last couple turns. And then our final 2K, and this is a new one in OP03. It's a 2-cost, 2,000 power. Look at the top 5 of your deck and place them on the top or bottom in any order. This one is a lot less powerful than Apis because obviously you don't get to grab a card, but you do still get the stacking effect, which can be really important in being able to find exactly the kinds of cards you need and pushing through them aggressively. It's also really important because you're using Kayas so often, this Kaya, you can stack cards that you don't care about so that you can get them into the trash quickly. When you have a hand that's full of good cards, you can stack the bad cards. When you have a hand that is full of bad cards, you can stack the good cards. And so there's a lot of interplay between these two. that makes for a pretty interesting gameplay. This deck really rewards people who can keep track of what they've searched and make good decisions, trying to identify what they need and what they'll be able to find another copy of. After that, we have another searcher here. We have the 1-cost, 1,000 power, 1k counter Nami from OP09, which has when attacking, look at the top 5 cards from your deck, reveal up to 1 blue event and add it to your hand, then place the rest of your at the bottom of your deck in any order. That stacking can be really important, and then finding those blue events, it's really important to be able to find these things. Your leader will often be playing a very defensive role, only swinging to get distinct advantage, and then otherwise holding up counter events to try to churn through your deck and get to a win. And when I get over to the events, you guys will kind of understand the strength of those cards. After that, we have this other new card from OP03, which is You, which I think... Oh, no, this one doesn't have a different translation. Her name is just You, I guess. And she has a 2-cost, no power, 1k counter with on play, trash 1 card from your hand. Feels pretty bad, right? But then it has activate main. If you trash this character, if you have 4 or less cards in your hand, draw 2. So effectively, this is a +1. If you have a low enough hand size to kind of get this activated, you can kind of churn through your deck with this. And importantly, going card positive in this deck is quite difficult, with a lot of the other cards in your deck all kind of being manipulating your deck rather than your hand size. So this is really important to have these style effects. Important to note with this one is it trashes itself. The previous versions of the Nami deck that got Kabaji banned was for a character that could stay on board, and you could just bounce it with some other effect and then play it again and to double up on that card positive. But this one does sacrifice itself, so that's a pretty potent limiter on it. It's hard to churn this back out of the yard. After that, we have one of the classics. This one hasn't seen a ton of play because it's kind of niche and hard to work, and it kind of goes against the game plan of the previous version. So one of the things that, even though you have this leader attack ability, oftentimes it would be wise to not swing at your opponent, because they can take the life and get advantage out of the extra cards in hand, which makes it gives them more options to fight you. But the way Gaimon is he's a 2-cost, 0 power, 1k counter with when you deal damage to your opponent's life, you may trash 3 cards from the top of your deck. If you do, trash this character. So it essentially adds on a mill 3 to any successful damage. Particularly notable when you can connect with a leader, because then that's 1 Dawn plus 2 Dawn here. So 3 total Dawn for 4 cards out of your opponent's thing. And you are technically taking a life. There are a couple decks that want to take their own life, and there is definitely an angle with this Nami deck to let your opponent try to take their own life, expecting you not to do it, and then you just find yourself in a spot where you can swing for 15 and they just weren't ready for it. So just something to watch out with Gaimon. He's a little tough to get on, but once you do, he can get pretty aggressively getting your game plan going. Next up is Nojiko. This is a key card in both Blue Yellow Nami and now Blue Nami. It is a 2-cost, 0 power, 1k counter with on play. If your leader is Nami, return up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less to its owner's hand. This is super efficient. There are very few cards that can reach this high on the cost scale for only 2. So very strong card and really important at kind of stifling your opponent's offense, or if you need to swing through with your leader or some of your other cards, really important on getting rid of blockers, and potentially kind of it just does a lot of things. It does not advance your game plan directly, but it has a lot of support for other cards. After that, we have Boodle. He's a 2-cost, 0 power, 1k counter with blocker. So pretty standard blocker, just good at protecting life. And then he has on KO, you may trash the top card of your deck. So If your opponents do want to swing in, they are advancing your game plan just a little bit. Not an unreasonable amount, but definitely kind of stifles your opponent's desire to push, especially as the game starts to get lower. That one card can be the difference between you getting there or not. So a solid card, good on defense, and does advance your game plan, even just sitting on back on defense. After that, we have the OP04 Hanger, who's a 2-cost 0 power, 1k counter with Activate Main. You may trash one card from your hand and rest this character to draw one card. So it is net a -1 in your hand, but it does force your opponent to swing into it, because they do not want you to swing to get this ability more than once, because each time is advancing you through your game plan, getting rid of some dead cards, and progressing you towards the win. So all in all, a pretty great card. The biggest downside being a 0 power means that they can swing in at with just about anything. A lot of decks these days have searchers that they'll not have any other good use for, so they can clear this free attack without too much issue. After that, this one's more of a tech card, but there are certain leaders where it does actually start to become relevant. We have this Zeph from OP06. He's a 3-cost, 3,000 power, 1k counter. With your turn, when your opponent activates blocker or an event, if your leader has the East Blue type, you may trash 4 cards on the top of your deck. So the deck that I would think of most often nowadays is Emu, who has multiple blockers that are really the kinds of cards that you really want to avoid. And they have events that they like to use. All on your turn, and so he can threaten to get in for life damage, especially if you have a Gaimon on the field. He can threaten kind of if they block it, then you get Zeph ability. If they don't block it, you get Gaimon. If they want to counter out of it, they lose cards in hand. So there's a lot of little things that you can kind of optimize around the Zeph, especially into Emu. And then if they are pinched on cards in hand, then you can get an event out and you can still get the 4 here, which is all pretty good options for the deck. After that, we have a pretty unique one. There isn't a ton of Blue Rush, so this is one of the original ones. It's a 4-cost 5,000 power, no counter, Usopp from OP03. He has Rush, and then he has Dawn ×1. When this character's attack deals damage to your opponent's life, you may trash 7 from the top of your deck. A lot of times this first 7 that you can connect with is enough to get you there. I think maybe in the promo version it is a little more difficult than the first one. You probably need to get 2 connects to have a really solid game, but connecting with this the first time greatly improves your abilities to win the game, because 7 is a whole lot of cards when your whole deck starts at only 40 cards. Because you have your first 5 in hand and your first 5 in life. Only needing to get through 40 cards, this is a significant amount of advancing towards the end of the game. All on a rush body that you can kind of play out. If you have your opponent on no blockers or anything like that, stack all your Dawn on it. So swinging for an 11k that mills 7, which is quite difficult to deal with. And then if you have something like Zeph on board, they can't even use a blocker to get around it. So lots of things to kind of line up together. After that, we have Belmare, who is very similar to Usopp. She's a 4-cost 5,000 power with 1k counter this time, with the same Dawn ×1 when attacking ability. When it connects, you get to mill 7. But instead of having Rush, she has on KO, you may trash 3 from the top of your deck. So a card that your opponent has to try to deal with, you'll either get through with 7, or they'll KO it and just get 3. Either way, you're in a pretty decent spot. Although for a 4-cost investment, you really ideally don't want them to get the Trash 3 version. That's kind of not ideal. But especially if it makes them swing into you, where you can use your counter events to really progress the game. One of the ways that you can kind of push Nami is by not swinging into them. So cards like Usopp, Belmare, and the next card we have Zeph, are all cards that kind of force the action on your opponent, allowing you to use your counter events and kind of progress your game through those. Next up, like I was mentioning, we have the 5-cost 6,000 power Zeph with 1k counter, and he has the same Dawn times 1 when this character deals damage, mill 7, same effect as the other two. And then he has on play, return up to one character with a cost of 3 or less to the owner's hand. You may trash 2 cards from the top of your deck. So this is definitely the best of the ones. Being a 5-cost, obviously he earns a little bit of extra power. But one of the most common lines that you'll see with him is you'll play out a Kaya, and then you'll play out a Zeph to pick up the Kaya, mill 2, and then you'll play down a Kaya, netting 6 cards out of your deck in one turn at the cost of 7 Dawn. And then you also have this Zeph on field so that you can kind of pressure their hand on a future turn. So all in all, a pretty great combo. Also would be effective with your Apises, Kayas, Nojikos as great things to pick up. Or alternatively, you can just target your opponent's stuff. If they have little blockers, if you're maybe facing into a Zoro or something like that, or a Rayleigh, you can use Zeph to kind of upset their board presence. All in all, great card for the deck. Biggest problem with him is he does get outed by removal pretty effectively. Moving on to the events, which used to be the bread and butter. I have yet to see the new gameplay to see how important the events are in this new version of the deck. But in the previous version of the deck, this was your bread and butter. Everything you did in the deck was almost entirely built around these events. The first of which we have is Usopp's Rubber Band of Doom. It's a 1-cost event with counter up to one of your leader's characters gains 2,000 power during this turn. Then you trash the top card of your deck. It also has a trigger of draw 1 and trash 1 from the top of your deck. So on trigger, it is a net 2 from your deck. On counter, it's a net 1 from your deck, all while getting your basic kind of 2k. So you often are holding up at least a couple Dawn to use some of these events for this style of effect. After that, we have Gum Gum Giant Gavel. This is definitely a very key card in the deck. It is a 1-cost event with counter. You may trash 1 from your hand up to one of your leaders gains 4,000 power during this battle. Then you may trash 2 cards from the top of your deck. Then it also has a trigger of return up to 1 character with a cost of 4 or less to its owner's hand. The trigger gives you some good anti-tempo, where you can kind of force your opponent back on their tempo, make them replay out their guys. And then the counter event gets 2 cards out of the deck while also giving you a nice 4k counter, which usually means your opponent has invested some amount of Dawn into their swings when you start using these. After that, we have a very classic Nami card. We have Sanji's Pilaf. It's a 3-cost event with main draw 2 cards. Very, no questions asked. Gets your hand size up. Gets 2 cards out of your library and does a really good job at kind of finding new cards you need, because your Gavels and some of your other cards are quite difficult on your hand size. So this is really important. On top of that, it does have the trigger of activate this card's main effect, which is really important because you often are playing defensive. Being able to go card positive on your opponent's turn, you start running out of the ability to counter, you can take sometimes hit one of these counters, and it's a great card to see no matter when you see it in the game, as long as you don't have them all stacked up at the end of the game, which can be hard to use them all. And then final card I wanted to highlight. There are a couple that I didn't highlight here, but I think most of them are just not quite a good fit for specifically this Nami deck. But the last card I wanted to highlight was the 4-cost 3,000 Worlds with main, place up to 1 character with a cost of 5 or less at the bottom of its owner's deck. So just good removal. This is a pretty good on-rate removal, and it is bottom deck, so it can get around a couple of different protection abilities. Although not all of them. It also does have a trigger of place up to 1 character with a cost of 3 or less at the bottom of its owner's deck. So less effective than Gavel at reducing tempo, but sometimes this will be there, especially because you can't always afford to use up 4 Dawn for this. So quickly browsing through the other cards, though, we have Usopp, who lets you play out vanillas, which there aren't a ton of in the archetype. So realistically, it just means the Grandpa Ryu, which is not a great card. But with Gaimon in particular, this just giving you bodies is a non-trivial interaction that you might want to consider. Other cards we have here, this Usopp's Pirate Crew can recur your Usopps so that you don't find yourself in a spot where you are unable to connect because they just clear it. So it is an option just as a 1K. Other ones we have are Carne and Patty, who both have abilities that are focused around you having 20 or less cards in your deck. They get a little more efficient. There are not strong cards at the end of the day, even with those abilities, but they do have some play that you could make with them. Another vanilla we have here. Another card that gets powered up when you have 20 or less cards. Another vanilla. This one is a slash card mostly, so I would not worry too much about this one. This one works maybe sometimes in Zoro and Sanji, but not so much in Nami. And then another vanilla and another card that works better in Zoro and Sanji. So that's really all of the cards that are even possible to run in this new Nami deck. I will say that I'm highly expecting cards to pop up in the future, because I do think that they want to support this kind of alternate wins thing, but they just over tuned it with its previous text, so they're going to have to give it some new cards in specifically the East Blue type, which I do expect that they will do. I think I heard that OP03 will have at least a partial East Blue archetype, which would be awesome to see in blue, giving this Nami deck more life. It is a deck that I think I will try when we do get OP03 and we get cards like you. I will be giving it another go, seeing what other people have cooked up, because I don't know if I'm quite practiced enough to cook up anything special, but I'll definitely give some of the stock Nami lists at the time at least 1 week playing it at my locals, and we'll see how it goes. But thanks for hanging out for this edition of the Road to Rotation. Next week, we'll be going over Iceberg, who is another kind of cult classic leader, who one of the original can't attack leaders, and so it'll be interesting to see how the game has moved on since him and his mono purple gameplay. But thanks again for hanging out, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.